Okay, so let's get started. Thank you all for spending your lunch break with us, because you could also be outside, enjoying your lunch. But you've chosen to enjoy your lunch here, so I'm really glad that you chose to do that. And welcome to the Ignite sessions. So everyone has his or her lunch ready? Yes? Great, so enjoy it. Now the Ignite sessions have returned to JFL once again, because we really love them here. We are hosting them for the 6th time already. And we even did them last year when the entire conference was digital. So we really had to have them. And of course, now that JFL is physical again, we really want to host them. So that's how much we love them here. So why do we love them? Well, the main reason is that they are quick. So if one of the talks is interesting, you'll very quickly learn something. And if a talk happens to be quite boring for you, it will be over very soon. Now, who has been to an Ignite talk before? Can you see a show of hands? Oh, lots of people, thank you. So about half of you have never been to an Ignite talk. So for those of you, I'll go over the fundamentals quickly. So Ignite's theme is enlighten us, but make it quick. So teach us something, but don't take too long. And the format actually mandates this. So everyone must present 20 slides, and they auto-advance. So the speaker doesn't have any control over the timing of the slides. Also, each slide will be up on the screen for 15 seconds. No more, no less, 15 seconds. And 15 seconds is quite short. It's not a lot. I mean, as a speaker, you just have enough time to see the slide, remember what you wanted to tell during the slide, start telling it, and before you know it, your 15 seconds are up already, and a new slide appears, and the entire process starts all over again. So you need maximum focus. Maximum focus. And this means 2 outcomes are possible. Either a speaker nails the timings and delivers the slickest talk possible, which means the speaker is very happy and the audience is quite impressed. Or a speaker fails the timings and falls dramatically behind the tight schedule, and the speaker might not be so happy, but the audience will be very much entertained. Either way, the audience wins. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope you are too. This is the agenda for today, and these are the 7 brave souls who are willing to put themselves to the test of the 15-second auto-advance. And we'll hear from Joep, from Bart, David, Jan-Hendrik, Julien, Tim, and Jan in that order. Now, before each talk, I will take a short time to introduce the speaker that's coming up, and take some time to start the slide deck. So, are you all ready? Yes! So, let's get started. Our first speaker today is a build master at Top Desk. He's interested in software development, testable code, synthesizers, gadgets, and youth work through scouting. He is actually a seasoned Ignite speaker at JFL, because I could find 2 earlier appearances of him delivering Ignite talks at both JFL 2017 and JFL 2018. So he's here for his 3rd Ignite appearance, delivering his talk, A Developer Experience, Engineer's Rant. Give it up for Mr. Joep Weijers. Okay, so I'll start your slides. I'll tell you when you can start, okay? Because it will take some time. So, here we go.
Ready, set,
Let's go, Joep.
Ready, set, go. Yes, there we go. So, I'm a developer experience engineer, and it's my job to make sure that our developers can deliver their software to our customers in a smooth fashion. And that actually means that developers are my customers. And our developers, customers are king. And our developers have loads of requests that all had to be done yesterday. And I'm going to talk you through some of these requests and the frustration that we got from them. First request. Hey, I want to deliver my bug fix into production within minutes. Can we have continuous deployment? Well, that's a sensible request. And the business likes it. And it's actually technically not that hard to realize. We just create a deployment pipeline all the way to production, and any commit can go through this pipeline. No issue at all. But our developers got scared. They were not happy with this. Because what they wanted was a manual check before going to production. Because, yeah, they did want to do some manual testing and acceptance before going to production. They found it all a bit scary. Now, that's Jez Humble, the writer of the book Continuous Deployment, is telling you it's about making it safe to deploy. It's not about the speed. You should do it in a safe way. So you need automated testing. Another request, second request we got, was about vulnerabilities. There are loads of data leaks reported now. So developers asked us, can you make sure that we write safe, secure software? Well, no, we can't, because it's really easy to mess up. What we can do is create install a scanner that will look at your dependencies, report any known vulnerabilities, and then you just make sure that you're using non-vulnerable components. That lowers the attack factor. But our developers weren't happy again, because they were reminded of the years of updates that they neglected to do and had a lot of dependency updates to do. So the next third request came in. Can you help us update our dependencies automatically? Well, sure, let's look at the release notes of dependencies and find out new versions. There's even tooling for that. So we set up those tools. They're called Renovate Bot or Dependabot. And they will help you by reporting new upgrades of dependencies. They can even make a merge request for you. That will kick off your continuous integration pipeline. If everything is green, well, let's just merge it back to master, because apparently it was working. Once again, our developers were really scared, and how do we know that an upgrade is not going to break my software? Well, this again is a symptom that they don't have sufficient testing, automated testing. They wanted to do a manual test before every merge request. Well, if you get tens of merge requests every day, or if you are maintaining multiple services, hundreds, yeah, that's not doable. So speaking about CI pipelines, we also had a request. Our fourth request came from our developers about CI pipelines. They don't usually build CI pipelines, so when they have to, they copy-paste it from everywhere, and then they have something that sort of works. Can we help them with that? Well, sure, we do it more often. We're experienced with it. So we created a standardized pipeline that removes the cognitive load of our developers. They don't have to think about it. They can just use it. And we even included some best practices, like having a code coverage button and stuff like that in your GitLab. Our developers were not happy because the button was red, because they didn't have sufficient code coverage. And well, this basically illustrates that they were still doing too much manual testing, not enough automated testing. And we can provide all these fancy automatic tools to help you do your development under one condition. And that one condition is that you have sufficient automated quality checks. Make sure that you have a good enough test suite that covers all the layers. And then, not only a test suite, actually, because you also need your monitoring. Because test suites, how much you test, there will always be some mistakes that slip through. So you also need to have your automated monitoring and alerting set up to do this properly. And then, and only then, you can enjoy the benefits of automated tooling and deliver quality, secure software to your customers continuously. Thank you.
Well done, Joep. Thank you for your presentation. So our next speaker is a software developer working at CodeCentric. He likes back-end services, event-driven architectures, and machine learning. And in his spare time, he enjoys korfball, running, and starting up side projects. Lots of side projects. Here to tell us how to make sure these side projects actually get finished, it's Mr. Bart van Wezel. Oh, nope. Don't want to skip a slide already. Even less time, to finish it. I'll make sure you can see the slides right here. And then let's start it up. There used to be a shortcut for this, but Google Slides edited it out. I'm not sure why. Bart, take it away.
Hello everyone. Before I start, I'd like to mention two things. I have a hearing disability, so my speech might sound a little bit different. And secondly, I cannot tell you how to finish all your side projects in 5 minutes, but I can give you some tips to create the arts. About this unfinished side project, I always thought the problem that was I did not have enough time. When you come home from work, commute, you still have to cook, sporting, social activity. But then COVID-19 came around. Suddenly, I had way more time than before, but I did not use this time to finally finish a side project. So I realized time is not the problem. So I did some research, found some tips that work for me that I'd like to share with you. The first tip is to set a goal for your side project. I'm not going to talk about smart goal setting, but I think it is important to realize whether the main goal of your side project is to deliver something or to learn something. If the main goal of your side project is to deliver something, you should keep in mind that we as a developer always tend to make things unnecessarily complex. Doing this complex does not help you in finishing your side project. For example, when I want to start up a blog, I thought, hey, I can use this to learn a new front-end framework, to connect it to a different cloud provider, to set up a new authentication method. But then I realized, hey, I just want to set up a blog, and I wanted to start writing blog posts. So I realized I can just install WordPress and start writing blog posts right away. So you should always keep your original goal in mind and think about if all those things really help you finishing your side project. If the goal of the side project is to learn something, you should keep in mind that there's no clear finish line. You always should look back at your goal and see, did I learn what I wanted to learn? Because otherwise you can consider it an unfinished side project where you still reach your goal. For example, with a college I was working on a Pokédex to learn more about Flutter and GraphQL. We never really published this as a public API or published it to the Play Store. But we learned a lot about GraphQL and Flutter, which was the main goal of your side project. If you really need a clear end for your learning side project, consider writing a blog post about it or giving a talk about it to just even help you with learning about what you learned during your project. Another tip is to start really small. This might sound like a hack because, hey, I only finished a small side project, but it can help you realize that you can finish your side project. This will give you motivation to continue working on it. Because if you finish something, it gives you a positive reinforcement. It is also more easy to quit your project gracefully because you already finished something if you do not like working anymore. Another tip for this, for those who say, I cannot make my side project any smaller, please double the amount of time you're giving yourself for it. Because not meeting your deadline can be really demotivating or even make you quit the side project altogether. Finally, sometimes I always finish my side project. I have to push one button to put it in production, but I never really do it because I'm scared of what other people might think of it. The UI might be a bit crappy, the code might be a bit hacky. So I also got some tips for this, but you should never really be scared because you did something in your own time, you learned from it. You should be proud of your side project. Two tips for this is to share a beta release with your friends or family. So you already shared, it doesn't have to be perfect yet. And you can already get feedback, and this makes it more easy to share your side project with strangers later on. Another tip is during your side project, most of the time halfway through, you're still full of motivation. You set a deadline online somewhere, and this can help you give the final push when you actually finish the side project. But most importantly, keep your side project fun. They are side projects for a reason and not your main project. So don't be afraid to quit your side projects if you don't find it fun anymore or you don't like working anymore. You can still be proud of your side project, even though it's never delivered somewhere. If you want to be back about this talk, there was a blog post about it on the blog of Codecentric. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you find some tips of this useful for your next side project.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Bart. You did a great job. Okay. So our next speaker is a dev engineer at ING, although his LinkedIn says product owner, so I'm not really sure which of these roles is the more recent, but he's also an avid blogger. He concerns himself with topics such as hacking IKEA food containers, the size of sugar cubes, and why reheating spinach is forbidden in the Netherlands, but apparently quite okay in all other countries in the world. Here today to talk about pimping your workstation and how to get your employer to actually pay for it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. David Baakman. Are you ready, David?
I am.
Let's go.
Thank you. So, welcome to this small talk about, about my Stream Deck and how I use it at work, or the more clickbaity title, how to convince your employer to buy you one. And the spinach one is actually on Wikipedia. Not this page, but another one. So 2020 was a weird year, right? Suddenly COVID happened and people started working from home all the time. Most of us were already working from home some time to time, but not all the time. And that meant that people started looking into their home office, started improving some things, adjusting some things, because it was just used more and more. Personally, I already had quite a nice home office, so was quite okay with it and didn't need to do too much. One thing that I did do was buy this Stream Deck. It's basically a small keyboard with screens under each key that show what happens. And you can program it. It's a macro pod, so when you press a button, you can program it to do all kinds of things. You can use it to open up a page, open up an app, fire off some shortcuts, and it has all kinds of plugins as well, so it can connect to all kinds of applications. One of those is, for example, OBS to control your streams and all that kind of stuff. It is by de facto the standard for streamers on Twitch and YouTube, and so that's basically the main purpose of it. I don't use it for that, but I do use it at work. And, well, if you are like me, a lot of work, all day, you are kind of doing, the same small thing over and over again. Opening up some set of pages, looking at some dashboards, and, who would have thought muting, unmuting 2 years ago, that was not an issue, but now I do it all the time. And so I configured my Stream Deck to help me with these things. One of the things that I mostly use is this page where I basically configured it with shortcuts to all kinds of dashboards. It's just a grid with buttons with shortcuts to web pages, and I configured it to, have the different environments in the rows and have the different pages in columns. And then I can, during a call, when I want to show a page or want to check something, I can just quickly with one hand press a button and the correct one is already there. Another thing during calls, as a PO, I always am talking about backlogs, different views on backlogs. So I have a nice set of pages in Azure DevOps that I open up, and I can just open that up during my call. So I mainly use it during calls. And there's one button to open up, for example, also the active pull requests. So I mainly use it in calls. At that moment, you are talking, you are not really at the keyboard, you are listening to people, and then with just one hand, you can just press a button conveniently. So, although IDEs are really heavy on the shortcuts, so it would be perfect. You can really configure all these keys to fire off some shortcut. Personally, I don't really use that, and the same also for the browser. At that moment, you are already at your keyboard, with your main keyboard, or at your mouse. So then I can just use that. And personally, I don't really use the Stream Deck for that. I do have one nifty thing that I configured for my browser. You can also have multiple steps when you press one button, and I configured it to have multiple steps that in one go I can quickly clear out the site's data for a specific site. So all in all, I use it almost all day long, quite a lot, and really find it convenient to help me with these kind of the tedious things. Well, and for the people who came here for the clickbaity title, I have to conclude with this slide, obviously. Thanks.
Thank you, David. We'll all be ordering ourselves a copy soon, right? Or let our employer order them for us. To be more precise. All right. So it's time for our next speaker. And he's a founder and a director at Yoink. He's passionate about eliminating tedious tasks from his routines. In his spare time, he's an amateur baker, so apparently that doesn't qualify as a tedious task. And according to his Twitter bio, he's also a tinkerer, a Lego nerd, and a human. Really glad we cleared that up. Anyway, he is here to tell you why you don't always need a framework. I give you Mr. Jan-Hendrik Kuperus.
Thank you.
Okay, let's set up your slide deck.
I think I'll take the other corner for a change.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have your clicker?
He doesn't need one. So, Jan-Hendrik, are you ready?
I am.
Let's go.
All right. So, frameworks. Frameworks are everywhere, of course. You can't probably open any software project anymore and not look at the framework. So that's usually also the first thing you do when you're in a project. You look at what kind of framework are we using, how are they working with it, because the framework you choose dictates in a lot of ways how your software is modeled, shaped, and where you need to be to change something. So they are there, of course, to make our lives easier, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. At some point, frameworks might even hinder you or slow you down, or outright make whatever you're trying to do impossible. And there's various ways, of course. Let's look at the life cycle for a second for a framework. At some point, somebody has an idea. They create something fun, other people pick it up, it grows, there's a little bit of a golden age, and eventually everything dwindles down and they disappear again. And like a lot of things in software, frameworks tend to grow. They start small because they're just fixing one problem, but then people start adding things to it, and maybe this can also solve this problem and this problem. Just Spring Boot just grew from 1.5 kilobytes to 1.5 megabytes over 5 major versions. And not just in size, they also tend to bring in dependencies, and over time just more and more dependencies. And as you all know, trying to keep dependencies down is good work, but transitive dependencies always try to sneak back in. And of course, these dependencies, well, you're not managing them, so how stable are they? Are you sure that whatever you're bringing in isn't adding any problems to your software that you're trying to write? I mean, Halloween was last week, but I think most of us will still remember NPM LeftPad of 2015, where a disgruntled developer just deleted its packages and the internet broke down. So that's definitely a risk against such things. And I don't know if you've ever wondered about security of the frameworks that you use. But apart from just bringing in dependencies, frameworks also bring in like ways to go about your application that you might not even use. And it might look fantastic at the top, what you're trying to do. It solves some of the problems you were trying to do. So that's fine, but there's a lot of stuff going on below. And the things that are going on below, those are generally prime targets for hackers because they're well documented. They are all over the internet, and they can probably find out really quickly how to do it. And the best thing is, you probably might not even know about these management pages or extra ports, and maybe you haven't even bothered looking at how you can turn them off. And another thing, frameworks tend to hide their complexity, which is good because we want to just keep working and getting our stuff done. But the problem is, if you're as a junior developer, you come in working on a project, you might not learn about what's underneath the project. And at some point, you might even run into a wall where a project is opinionated and makes whatever you're trying to do impossible. And you'll just be stuck with whatever you're trying to do, and it's just not possible. So, are they all bad? Should we just stop using frameworks? Well, no, I don't think anyone here wants to write yet another WebMVC framework or just reinvent another wheel like logging or something like that. So that's not what we want. What I'm trying to say here is, usually when we pick a framework, we tend to stick with it. We are stuck with the frameworks we use. We do not feel the freedom to look at our framework and maybe just go back and choose something else. But frameworks are tools. And like hammers, there's variations of these tools. Each hammer has a slightly different purpose, and maybe it might just fit whatever you're trying to do a little bit better if you'd use a different hammer. And the main message for me here is that you should just be curious. Stay curious. Look inside your framework, because inside the framework is generally a lot of smart code. Smart people have been trying to solve problems that you might not even know about for years, and you can learn things from it. And that's the real treasure. Apart from the productivity increase, the treasure is what you can learn from what people have already solved for you in a framework, and maybe it might help you solve your problem in a different way. It will probably make you a better developer if you see how other people solved it. And you might even find the problem before it becomes a problem, and that's good because nobody wants to be this guy. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if you're working with a framework, remember that the framework doesn't choose you. You're the one that chooses the framework, but you're also want to choose not to use a framework. And that's a freedom we all have, and we might have to feel that a bit more.
Very wise words. Thank you, Jan-Hendrik. I'll try to remember it. Next time I pick Spring Boot or something. Yeah, we all know we're going to do it anyway, right? So it's time for our next speaker. And our next speaker, yeah, there we go. Our next speaker is a developer advocate at Adyen, sorry, Dutch company, right? Yeah, Dutch company, Adyen. And earlier this year, he has organized a conference called Simple WebConf. I could tell it was almost by his own, so very impressive. Well done. In his spare time, he likes growing his own food. And speaking of food, I know for a fact that earlier this week, he whipped up a mean erte soup, because I saw a picture of it. I mean, how many of you can do that? How many of you have whipped up your own erte soup? Like half? Ooh, he's more Dutch than you, I guess. So, point to Julien. He is here to inspire us by showing ways to arrive at your ultimate dream job. Give it up for Mr. Julien Lengrand Lambert.
Thank you. All right.
Let's get you set up, Julien. No. So are you ready? Here we go.
Okay, thanks. Well, that's a bit cheating. We can start slow because you've already done the introduction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about how to create your dream job. Sounds easy, but yeah, a few things I've learned the past year. Just for information, developer advocacy is new for me. I've discovered that 2 years ago. I was a developer just a developer, software developer, and that's a few things I've learned along the way. So that's why I'm here to share them. So dream job, right? We're going to start with the easy one. The first thing you want to do is be paid for what you're doing, right? Sounds simple, but it's not always the case. I love to play video game. It's hard to get in the game, so you want to be paid for it. But you also want to be doing something that you're good at, right? That's not, that's not always also easy. I would love to be a football player, maybe, but I can't. So, be aware of the feedback that people give you. Know what you're good at. That's a good start. And the third, it's not here. The third thing is the most important one for me is what gives you energy. What do you like to do? And as software developer, it's not easy, but what gave me a good day? That's really what I want to chase for. And for those of you that don't know it doesn't show everything, but it's fine. There is a concept in Japanese culture that's called ikigai, and that's exactly what it is. The combination of being something you're good at, something you're paid for, something you like to do. That's really helped me along the way those last 2 years. And the big question is, what does give you energy? As software developers, we're literally paid to play and to fix problems. So most of us kind of like what we're doing, but there are things that we love more than others. And that's what we're going to dive into. And for me, that was a big question. That's fine. We'll work with it. This is a book. You don't see it. I've started writing. Basically, for me, I was like, what do I like? And I started writing what I liked to do every day. And it's like, what is it that made the day very good? I discovered after a while there was a common theme. And actually, it was two common themes. There was people, there was tech. So maybe you're good at two things and you like to do those two things. It doesn't have to be one. A lot of people are actually good at a combination of things, and that's what it's about. And once you've found that, then you can fix on this. You can, use that as a compass and find every single opportunity. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's social media, whatever. For me, that was, combining people and tech. Find that, and then make that. Yes, this one works nice. Find a way to do more of it every day. That can be at the beginning a little difficult because you're not aware of it, you don't know where you're going, but as you go, you're going to be better at it. Maybe at the end you end up, organizing a conference, who knows. And build in public. Find ways to, even if it's not on social media, even if it's not GitHub, talk to people about it. Make them excited about what you like and what you're doing, because that's a big part of it. A few seconds. Oh, come on. Okay, this one is two kids with being heroes, and then the big thing is, find your heroes. There are people that are going to like and are going to feed off what you're projecting. There are people that are going to love what you're doing. At ING, I was a marketing people, a tech event people. They really liked what I was doing. So surround yourselves with people like that. And this is another picture. This is like a community. Also find people that are doing the job that you want to, that you're aiming for, because you're going to learn from them. And by being around people that are doing what you want, by being around people that are doing what you want to do, then it becomes easier, you get more opportunities. And don't forget to thank the people that helped you along the way, because that's really going a long way, and this is also a way to project energy to others. Another one that I find extremely important, that's how I found my job. Go for those jobs that you're not qualified for. I found my job by applying for a developer position. I wasn't good at it at the time, I wasn't good enough. I talked to the people and learned what I needed to do, and 2 years later I made it in the same company. Lastly, that's not last, but next, find also, there's a lot of opportunities inside of your own company, so maybe something close. You're thinking about changing job, you don't have to. Maybe some people can help you along the way. And this goes a little bit further, but that's interesting. A lot of people see something as a problem, and if you found what you like to do, you're going to see that as an opportunity. And that's a very good way to go to those people and connect with them and see how you can solve their problem. So if we summarize, if you don't know what you really like to do, but there's something today, write it down, do more of it every day, find a way to talk about it, and then be surrounded by your heroes, which we didn't see. And I'll end up with this one to stay. The journey starts with a small step, so basically just start with something, and that's maybe a side project, who knows?
Thank you. Yeah, so it seems, thank you, Julien. So it seems like we're dealing with some flaky internet here, because of course I put all the slide decks up in preparation, and now I'm not sure, it's not very flaky. So I've got an Ethernet cable over here, but it's quite short. I'm not sure if someone can extend it for me. I think they can't, so let's just continue. So for the next speaker, I hope if the video is failing you, that you still can tell us some sensible things. I really did my best. Let me assure you of that. Okay, so our next speaker is a senior software engineer at JDriven. He's an avid Spring user. He enjoys working with Spring Boot, Spring Cloud, Spring Data, Spring Security, and Kafka Streams. So he likes frameworks, right? We should organize a panel with Jan-Hendrik over here, Mr. Case Against Frameworks, and Tim, Mr. I love all Spring flavors and Kafka. Just kidding. When he is not at work, we can find Tim traveling, bouldering, snowboarding, or surfing. He is here to talk to us about documentation, and let's be honest, that's an ability that we all can improve upon. Please welcome Mr. Tim Tebeek. Oh, I'm going to set it up for you. And I wish you very stable internet. Yeah. Honestly. Are you ready? Yep. Let's go.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Tim, and I'm a consultant at JDriven. Now, as a consultant, I switch assignments about every other year, and thus get to onboard in new organizations all of the time. Now, I tend to join projects after there's been quite some development over a couple of years, usually around the time when the people who first started the project leave. And since building microservices came out a couple of years ago, that is now the dominant form of architecture I encounter. But you know how it goes. People only look at the cover of the book and run with it, building webs of interconnected services before they leave for their next project. And since I once did some things with Kafka, that is now where I usually come in to make sense of what's been built and decouple the services using Kafka. So my first days, I'll ask someone to show me a diagram of services and how they interact. That seems innocent enough, but the answers are typically underwhelming. At best, I'll find a diagram that someone did some time ago with equal parts missing, outdated, or just plain wrong. At worst, I'll find a photo like this of a whiteboard taken 3 years ago, subset of services, and of course nowadays shared with me over Zoom. So I want to share with you what my approach has been over the past couple of years to make sure these outdated diagrams don't happen again, so that maybe next time around I won't have to dig through a wiki again. So the basis is simple. I'll make many more, much smaller diagrams, one per microservice repository, and put it front and center. At the top of the README works best as a constant reminder of the service and how it relates to others. Continuously update the smaller diagrams. Don't try to maintain one big diagram across multiple teams, and especially don't postpone creating a diagram until the refactoring is finished. Then combine the smaller individual service diagrams, put them all together. That's it, that's the whole point. But how do you go about doing that? Well, the devil, as always, is in the details. You'll need some way to create your diagrams. In my case, I went with Plant UML because it's text-based, so it's great to diff. It has a flat learning curve, there's no tooling involved, and it's great for automation. And I never thought I'd be enthusiastically talking about Plant UML. So what should you show in each service diagram? Well, the service itself, obviously. You want to show external dependencies, and you want to show calls to internal services. But calls from other internal services should be in those service diagrams. You also want to show input and output topics, preferably top to bottom, as well as storage, as that shows service characteristics and complexity, especially when there's multiple types or shared storage. So let's look at a complete example. Notice how the keywords in blue lead to different icons. And notice how the arrows indicate direction. And notice how the green labels show up in the diagram. Now, each individual diagram should probably take you no more than 10 minutes each. But if you want to potentially spend a lot more time, you can look into automation. Using tracing, ACLs, or deployment descriptors, you can extract a rough draft per service. And then, once you've created all your service, individual service diagrams, it's time for some terrible scripting. Download all your diagrams and bluntly join them all together. It's slightly more involved, but certainly not hard. And then you'll end up with such a diagram. It's terrible. But we're not done over there yet, sadly. But the diagram is scalable, it's searchable, it's complete, and most importantly, it's always up to date. So with the individual diagrams created and composition working, you'll want to schedule a daily job to publish your diagrams internally. Use GitHub or GitLab pages for publication, or anywhere you can put static resources. Now, some words of advice: your initial diagram will look terrible, but it might match your code pretty well. Create sub-diagrams for specific technologies or sub-slices of functionality, and compare your diagrams over time. Update your diagrams whenever you change service interactions, and consistency is key when you want to combine diagrams in this way. Plant UML is very script-friendly, so experiment with that. So in summary, my plea to you is this: make many more diagrams to help me break that cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We'll all try to make many more diagrams. Or at least I will try. So sadly, not sadly because I'm excited for his talk, but sadly it is the final speaker. So time to announce him. He's a senior software engineer at Yoink. He wrote Equals Verifier, a tool that can be used in Java tests to verify whether the contract for the equals and hash code methods is met. So that sounds very useful. In his spare time, he likes to go to concerts, so be kind to him, right? He probably just had the roughest 1.5 years of his life.
I went to one this weekend.
Yay. Good for you, Jan, good for you. He's here to talk about fantastic languages and what to learn from them. Please welcome Mr. Jan Ouwens. So let's get you started. So are you ready, Jan?
Never.
Never. Let's go.
So the pragmatic programmers in their book, maybe you've read it, they recommend that you learn a language every year because doing so will make you a better programmer, because the practice of learning a language will make you think about the languages you already use in a different way. So let's talk about a bunch of languages. This is basic. This is a language that I've learned. Look at the line numbers. This is something you don't see in many languages. You can just go to 20 and it goes to 20, no matter if you're in a loop or whatever. In the 80s, you had computers that you could start up and you would be immediately in a programming environment. No fiddling with text editors or other kinds of bullshit. You could just go and program something, and it was cool. And what I learned from BASIC is programming. It was the first language I learned. And actually, I learned it on my grandparents' MSX computer. So that was pretty cool. PHP is another language that I used in the past. It looks like this. And it was used, to build websites, backends for websites, mainly, well, it's not as popular anymore as it used to be. But the cool thing about PHP is that it just works. You don't have to fiddle with a build environment. You just upload your PHP file and you go, and it will just do its thing. Lots of other languages and environments can't say that. And back in the early 2000s, at least, the documentation for PHP was excellent. and better than that of most other languages, at least at the time. I think most of them have caught up, but PHP was there first. Another language is Elm. It looks like Haskell. Maybe that explains why it hasn't exploded in popularity yet. But it is a very cool language and a gateway drug, I guess, if you do want to learn Haskell. But the really cool thing about Elm is its error messages. They are very extremely descriptive. You get plain text, you get an explanation, you even get a suggestion on how to fix the error. And if you don't understand the error, then that's considered a bug in the compiler and you can report it. And what I learned from Elm is even an idiot like me can do front end. So Lisp is another cool language to learn. It looks like this. It is very, parenthesis-y. But it is a really cool language. It's a functional programming language. And it really makes you think about things in a very different way. So the syntax of Lisp is extremely minimal. You have parentheses, you have identifiers, and you have white space. And that's it. That's all there is to it. But with only that small amount of syntax, the power is amazing. It's the most powerful language I know, and that makes it beautiful and undecipherable, and full of meaning. You have to really study to get it, but if you do, then it's amazing, like this piece of Arabic text. A cool thing is Delphi. I use that a lot. It looks like this. Interpunction is nice. The last end has a dot. Because that's the end of the program, and they don't have braces, but begin and end. And in Delphi, you could drag and drop your user interface together, and then you could drag a button onto the screen, and then double-click on it, and you could start typing, and that was what it would do if you click that button. And that's really cool. What I learned from Delphi is I needed a hash map, and it didn't have one, so I had to implement it myself, and that was actually a pretty cool learning experience. So, and the final language is annotation script. I made it. It consists entirely of annotations inside of Java. So there's a little bit of bootstrap at the end, but the rest is all annotations. So why the hell did I do that? Well, I noticed people use annotations a lot in Java, and they can do powerful and amazing and weird things, but nobody ever thought of creating a programming language in them. So, I had to, and I did. And actually, the cool thing about annotation script is that it is a Lisp, except instead of parentheses, you have annotations, and that's the only difference. And what I learned from it is implementing Lisp is actually pretty cool, and I created a Lisp interpreter in annotation script even, so going meta all the way. So what I recommend to all of you is find a language that looks interesting to you, start learning it, and maybe you learn something cool from it. Thank you.
Well, that was great, Jan. Yes, fist bump. Ooh, missed also. What a fun way of working we have, right? I just love our jobs. It's great. So, I think all our speakers did a fabulous job. So let's give them one final round of applause. Our 7 speakers. Yeah. And of course, also thanks to you for attending and for meeting with us and spending your lunch break with us. So thank you and have a great afternoon.